Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So I'm super excited to be back and to be back on YouTube and talking about books with you guys, or talking about books with somebody other than myself. Um, so today in this vlog, we're going to be talking about a couple books that I am reading. And by the way, I have on shorts. This is a set. If it doesn't look like I do, but I definitely do. If it doesn't look like I don't, I definitely do. Anyway, so guys, I want to show you a couple of books that I've accumulated over the past couple of days that I am taking on a trip that I'm going to this weekend. And I'm super excited. When I pack for trips, I usually take like a ton of books with me because I'm a mood reader and I need to have like options. So these are the stacks of books that I have, that I've accumulated and that I want to talk about. Here they are. So the first book is Not So Perfect Strangers by L.S. Stratton. It's a thriller, and it is about this black woman who runs into this white woman during a night where she's trying to get away from her husband. Her and her teenage son are trying to get away from her abusive husband, and they both are in very bad relationships, and they basically go on the run together. And it says something about how it has some social commentary in it, and talks about race and gender politics, and it's also a spin on Alfred Hitchcock's Strangers on a Train. I've never seen that, but the book sounds great, and I've seen a lot of booktubers here on BookTube talk about it, like Reading Riley, and there was one more booktuber that read this book that said a couple of things, but I can't think of their names. So if I think about it, I'll put it down in the link below. The next book I have is Thirst for Salt by Madeline Lucas. This is about a young girl who falls in love with this man 20 years her senior, at this isolated coastal town in Australia, and it basically just tells their story, and it sounds really good. And I read like a couple pages at the bookstore and it sounded really cool, so I'm really excited about it. And then we have Sunshine Nails by May Wynn. And I am super excited for this book. It looks so cute. Like, look at the cover. It is just stunning. The yellow is so good. It is really smooth and I love it. So this is about a Vietnamese family who runs a nail shop, and a competitor moves across the street from them, and they plot to kind of take them down. So it seems fun, it seems lighthearted, but it also goes into into race relations and things like that. So I don't think it's going to be the lightest read, but it also looks very fun, and I'm hoping that it's really good, but I'm really excited for it. And the other book I have, the last book I have, is It's Not All Downhill From Here, by Tara McMillan. I am actively reading this book. I think I'm on like chapter 9 as I'm reading. Everything's Fine. I'm also like going back and forth between this book and Everything's Fine. So this book is about a woman named Loretha who celebrates her 68th birthday, and a tragedy hits, and she is left in the aftermath of that tragedy and trying to figure out her life going forward as she ages. And it's a really great book, and it hits on a lot of very interesting topics, at least topics that I find interesting. It's not written that well, just FYI, but it's still interesting, and I have to give it that, because like I can't put it down. I've been reading it constantly, like going back and forth between this book and Everything's Fine. So there's something that's keeping me like in it. So yeah. So I am reading in this vlog Everything's Fine by Cecilia Rabis and Bella the Ball by Marie Koska. These two books I'm super excited for, and yeah, so we're gonna dive right in. So first we're going to talk a little bit about Everything's Fine. So I'm reading Everything's Fine like on a physical book, but I'm also reading it on my Kindle, and it has been a time. I'm only 20% into this book, so I'm not that far. And I know like I should wait until I'm like further into the book to like give you my thoughts. But so much has happened in like the first like 50 pages or first, I don't even know how many pages it is, probably like 30 something pages. Like a lot has happened in terms of like the discussions that are being had, like the character and all that stuff, and it's all just too much for me. Um so the character, if you don't know what this book is about, it's a book, it just came out I think June 3rd if I'm not mistaken. It might have been June 6th, but it's a fairly new book, and it's about this woman named Jess who works at a, I think it's a tech company if I'm not mistaken, and it's set in the backdrop of the 2016 election when Donald Trump was elected. So yeah, that becomes like really pertinent information to know when talking about this book, this lovely beaut here. So the book is about Jess, and she is a black woman who falls in love with this conservative white man, and it's basically about like their relationship and everything that they have going on. um the book takes an interesting twist on this relationship in terms of, when I say like twist, I don't mean like there's like this big twist like in like thriller books, like there's this twist that comes. I don't know if there's like a twist. I haven't gotten that far into it, to be honest. But there are some things that happen in the book that are very problematic, to say the least, in terms of like my opinion. Like this stuff might not be problematic to like other people, but to me it's problematic, and I just want to rant about it for a second and read you like a few quotes if I can, just like so you can get an idea of where I'm coming from in terms of, yeah. So here are a few of my tabs that I have. As you can see, I'm not that far into it. I'm actually further on my Kindle than I am in this book. I just haven't marked it up yet. But the tabs, I have 4 different color tabs, and the first tab is for red flags for the main love interest, and dumb shit that he says. The second tab, which is purple, is for racism of any kind. The blue tab is for stuff I wanted to remember / quotes and probably still racism on the author's part. And the light colored pink, the dusty pink, is for the main character being stupid. These are things that I clocked just almost immediately going into the book, and I decided to tab them. So yeah, take with that what you will. So there's this discussion that's had fairly at the beginning of the book. I think it's on page like 14. The main character is in the class with the main love interest, Josh, and they are in a Supreme Justice course or something in undergrad. I forget the exact name of the course, but they were taking a course together in undergrad on politics, and they were talking about affirmative action. And Josh goes and says that oh my gosh, I'm literally trying to read from the book and then still blanking out. Anyway, so like Josh tells the class, he's like, or he's directing it at Jess, the black woman, and he was like that she's a direct beneficiary of affirmative action. And he says, I see why you want to defend it. I get it. I do. But you can't really believe, I mean, intellectually, not emotionally, that relaxing admission standards is an appropriate mechanism by which to address systematic inequality. Sending kids to schools that they're not qualified to attend, that's helping. Besides, it's completely unenforceable. I mean, the real problem with inequality in this country has nothing to do with race, right? It has to do with class. How is it fair that a rich African American kid with mediocre grades and test scores gets preference over some poor kid from the Appalachia who's had less in life? Um, so yeah, that's something that he says, and I'm just gonna let that like simmer and like let you guys talk some on yourself about like what that means for you. For me, it's like just like a very problematic statement. And I know like the author is like trying to make a point. Like he is a conservative. He is someone who has these very strong views on like affirmative action, race in America, and other political topics that should be like handled in a respectful and inappropriate way, and taking into consideration the other people that it affects. And it should be nuanced as well. It should be a nuanced discussion, but it's never like a respectful conversation when it comes to Josh. He's very condescending, very ignorant, and he just doesn't get it. Like it just doesn't click in his head until like later on in the story. I guess he like comes to like some revelation where he likes the main character, and because she's black he needs to start acting a certain way. It's just very, to me it's very like he's not changing his ways. He's just like trying to appear a certain way because like, oh, he likes this girl and they want to date. I guess I don't know. I don't really buy into the relationship right now. They are slowly starting to like build a relationship, but anyway, he's very disrespectful to her in many instances. He degrades her. He talks about her intelligence. They both work at the same job. And he is her quote unquote mentor, where the people at the company assign first years someone who's been working at the company longer to mentor them and help them with their like assignments if they have questions and stuff. They started at the same time, but he is her mentor, and I'm like, this is typical. Like this is like typical like standard shit that you see just like everywhere. So I'm not surprised that that happened. I also he also at one point in the book like degrades her so much. Like he insults, not degrades, but like insults her so much to the point where he's like, she has the intelligence of like a fifth grader, even though they're doing the exact same job and she's a data analyst or whatever she is, and he does the same thing, and he is doing something illegal at his job to like get his work done quicker, and she wants in on it. She wants like she's like, can you tell me how to do it? And he's like, no, why would I give you anything? Like, no, I don't think you can handle it. I don't think you understand it anyway. He was like, oh, it's like equivalent to giving some kind of nuclear like bypass or something to a fifth grader. I don't know. Something along those lines. Anyway, it was insulting. It was disrespectful, rude, inappropriate, all of the above. Josh is a horrible character. I think he might be the worst character I've read about in fiction in years. Probably the worst character I've ever met in real life. And I've never met him in real life, just in like book world. But anyway, yeah, so we're gonna get right on into this vlog, and I'll give you some more of my thoughts on Everything's Fine, and also talk a little bit about The Belle of the Ball as we get going. Yeah, so stick around and we'll see what happens. So I just got to the part in the book where Jess and Josh start like talking, or I don't mean like talking, like they discover that they like each other, or is more accurate, I feel like. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about this relationship. I just really don't like the relationship. I'm just saying, like, I don't know how I feel about it in general, but I know I don't like it. But I don't know. I'll be back when I have more coherent thoughts. So I'm in the same spot, but I had to come back and talk about just a little bit about this book, Everything's Fine, because a conversation just came up that I think is really interesting. So Jess and Josh are at a party that Josh invited Jess to, and they're talking about, you know, they're flirting or whatever, and they're like getting into it, and Josh gets called away by one of his friends to go do like tequila shots, and Jess goes to the bathroom to like freshen up and overhears a conversation that he's having with some of his friends. And the conversation is, she doesn't really hear it. She can't really tell who's talking, but someone in the conversation said something about jungle fever. And if you don't know what jungle fever is, that's when a white person dates a black person or has a preference for black people. It's usually used as like a slur sometimes, to like make a joke that that's who they like, that's who they prefer to date. It's a very ignorant saying, and I haven't heard it used in a long time, but I know that it's very ignorant and it's not something that I personally use. And she overhears someone says it, but she doesn't know who said it. But she hears like Josh still laughing and like him having like a good time with these people, even though that statement was said. And there's a point when she is talking about this other guy that she used to date, who was also, it wasn't explicitly said that he was a white guy, but he's definitely a white guy. Just the way he's described, and like in many books, like if the character is black, like the author has no problem saying the character is black in black books and white books or whatever. So I'm going to read you a passage from this book, and I just wanted to get you guys' opinion on it. So this is after, a little bit after at the party. There, I think it jumped a little while, like a couple scenes. After they started dating, even though she wanted to, Jess avoided having sex with him being Josh, for as long as she could, like taming a wild beast by tying it to a fence. It had reassured her how patiently he waited, though eventually, of course, his patience ran out, at which point he had pouted, then shouted, then called her a tease, until finally she relented. Really?